I'd like to begin by acknowledging the land in which we're holding this event, and also the land where the School of Public Health works. Land recognition is an act to remember the sacrifices that Indigenous peoples have made. They have been and continue to be a significant part of this country. Land recognition is one way in which we can appreciate these contributions and counter the erasure of Native people in our society. For thousands of years, this land has been the traditional home of Indigenous peoples, including the Piscataway, Lumbee, Cherokee, and other Indigenous peoples who continue to live here. This land is unceded territory of the Susquehannock and Piscataway peoples with whom treaties were made. We are grateful for the opportunity to work on this land and to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I also have the pleasure of introducing one of our newest faculty members, Dr. Melissa Walls from the Bois Forte and Couchiching Anishinaabe First Nation. She is a social scientist who works on community-based participatory research with tribal communities in the United States and Canada. She is the director of the recently opened Great Lakes Hub of the Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health, which was made possible by support from the Bloomberg American Health Initiative. She will be discussing issues of obesity and food systems with Tara Houska, a tribal attorney, leader, and prominent activist from the Couchiching First Nation. We'll hear about why these issues are important for Indigenous people and how we can all learn from their experience. Please welcome them.
Anine Tara.
Anine Boozhoo.
Boozhoo, everyone. Can everyone say Boozhoo? Good morning. That means hello in Ojibwe. Melissa Walls in Anishinaabe, Memingwe Anishinaabe in Anishinaabe, Migizi Duodam. Thank you, David, for that land acknowledgement. Miigwech to the Bloomberg Summit for bringing Indigenous people to the stage this year. We thank you for that. I'm going to start with just a few words to echo what Ashley said earlier. This work is personal work. Type 2 diabetes is killing our relatives. Obesity is killing our relatives. We know that this is a result of an obesity epidemic that disproportionately hits Indigenous people. We heard from Michael Bloomberg about the declining mortality rates in America in the past few years. Our communities have been watching that for decades. And we often get left behind in this narrative. And yet, we haven't always been that way. We have vibrant community members. We have scholars, tribal leaders, lawyers, activists. We have amazing people in our communities doing heart work, doing the hard work. And I'm here today to share with you that we're changing up that narrative. The inequities are hitting us hard, but we want to offer solutions. And we are so lucky to have with us today Tara Houska. This is a real treat. What lessons she will teach us have teachings for all communities across the globe, including all of America. So Tara, could you introduce yourself to the community we're with today?
Miigwech. Thank you, Melissa. Boozhoo, Ginew, Shabawekwe, Indigenous, Anishinaabe, Mung, Mukwin, Dudame, Couchiching, and Dunjaba. My name is Tara Houska. I am Bear Clan from Couchiching First Nation. I'm very glad to be here with all of you today, so thank you for the invite. Thank you for featuring Indigenous peoples on this stage. I believe that we have a shared narrative of humanity, right? We're in this really urgent time, and we need urgent solutions, and that means we need to hear from all the different voices that can bring those solutions to each other. So, miigwech for that.
Yeah. So, Tara, one of the things I wanted to share with this audience is a message that I think both of us have talked about, which is we've got these inequities, these health issues that plague our communities, and you know, we have personal stories. We've lost family members to these types of diseases, but we're here. You know, we're survivors. We're surviving all the time. And I would love for you to share with this group some of the examples of Native survivance that you've seen on the front lines in your work, in your personal life, some of those stories that we want others to know about our communities.
First off, I mean, in terms of resilience and survival, we are still here. That is incredible. We have survived policies of genocide, of theft of land, of people, of culture, of every possible form of oppression you can imagine, and we're still here. Our people are still here. And that in and of itself is survival. I would say, to me, in terms of a story of resilience, beyond just the fact that we're still here, is, you have a people who currently are globally 5% of the population. That's Indigenous peoples. We are 5% of the population. We hold 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. 80% and just 5% of the people. We are consistently erased from mainstream culture. Our voices are consistently not heard. Our people are in very unequal situations when it comes to economic development, to growth, to sovereignty, to issues of just basic human rights. Yet our peoples are at the forefront of protecting our Mother Earth for all of us, for the entire whole of humanity. I spent 6 months out in North Dakota fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline. What I saw was people who are consistently forgotten, standing for the drinking water of 17 million people, trying to make a global change in understanding our relationship to Mother Earth and our dependence on this one homeland that we all share. Those are the people that are standing at the front lines, and that is powerful.
So you're mentioning the front lines, your work in environmental activism. Tara right now lives in a camp in the woods in Anishinaabe territory. So she came out of the woods to hang with us today. And we're thankful for it. But I'm wondering if you could share with this audience a little bit about how Indigenous food systems might be distinct from or similar to the way that most academics think about food systems or most governments think about food systems.
Yeah, so and to put a little more specific beyond just the camp I'm part of, I actually came from deer hunting. We have a couple weeks to get our deer, but that to me is it's a food system that people don't often think of. So there's indigenous foods like the foods that belong to a bioregion that have been there for thousands of years. And obviously there's a lot of pressures on those food systems, constant outside environmental disruption, commercial agricultural disruption, many different impacts that we face when it comes to those food systems. But those food systems are part of an ecosystem, right? It's part of a whole health of an area. So in our case, Anishinaabe people have wild rice. That is not just wild rice that's just in a vacuum. It's wild rice that's impacted by water quality, by air quality, by outside pressures around land and land development. And then that translates to all these other animals along the chain that also depend on that, and ultimately to every possible aspect of our food health. It is localized systems that I know that we have to more strongly move towards, because globalization is just not meeting the needs of our shared survival.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? Earlier, Tara was telling me a bit about sort of how these local food systems relate or can come up against pushes for agriculture and big farming or even small farming. How does that relate?
Yeah, so you've got like a delicate bioregion that has all kinds of indigenous foods that are part of that system. And then something like, in Minnesota, I can think of, you've got commercialized soybeans, commercialized corn, these wide swaths of land that involve tree clearing, that involve, radically shifting an environmental system. And what pressures does that cause on the existing ecosystem, let alone like the larger scale of what a healthy environment looks like? Those solutions, though they might seem like we're going to solve hunger with commercialized food, commercialized agriculture, that is a solution that's based in an idea that we have to have globalized capitalism, we have to have globalized society, because that's how we solve these problems, when in fact a lot of those problems are coming from that method of belief.
And I think the disconnection of people from our food, we hear about this a lot, but if there are two key variables from our team's research that I could share with all of you that seem to be the predictors consistently of good health in our communities, and I think it's true for all humans, it's culture, and all humans have culture. And for us, Anishinaabe, Tara mentions monoman or wild rice, that is That is actually the prophecy that brought us to Minnesota. You can Google it if you don't know what I mean. But we are intimately connected to that food culturally and through cultural practice. So culture, and number 2 is community. And at camp, you are living in community. We live in community to be able to survive, working in these contexts. And so local food systems are intimately related to those 2 key variables, I think. You've touched on this a little bit, but people often will come to a conference and they'll see a session about Indigenous or Native American or American Indian health, and then they think, oh, that doesn't apply to me, which is not true. So please, if you ever go to a conference and you see Native American or American Indian anything, come, because we hope that there's things that you'll learn. But what key lessons could we share with this audience that you'd really want them to know about these movements?
I touched on it just a little bit at the beginning. So oftentimes what I also encounter, and I'm sure you have, is not only is it kind of like, oh, that's nice, I'm glad that Native people are here, that's powerful, we're doing better to be inclusive. But then it also kind of becomes this very niche, well, that's like really romantic, and you're kind of living this, this kind of lifestyle that really isn't very practical. It doesn't apply to like a mainstream society. It doesn't work. Right? I'd like to remind folks, 5% of the globalized population, 5% Indigenous peoples are 5%, 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. I think we're doing something right. I think we might have some solutions that maybe other people have forgotten about, because we are talking about connection. We're talking about what it means to be truly connected, not only to the earth, but to each other. That is the power of community. There are real solutions in that are not steeped in emotion or romanticism. It's an actual solution of what it looks like to have a society that's reflective of inclusivity of the earth, that we are not sitting at the top of some chain, and that as a person, you lose value as you grow older or whatever it is, or as you grow sick. That's not what a community is. We do have solutions that I think can apply to so many other people of living in connection with each other and with the earth.
Tara mentions connection, and I can't help but share something personal with this group of hundreds of friends that we have here. And that is that Tara and I actually graduated from the same very teeny tiny high school in International Falls, Minnesota. Both descendants are enrolled at the Couchiching First Nation across the river, but never met until just now. So thank you to the summit for letting us have this connection, but we've been connected virtually and through relatives, and so it's really great to share the stage. I think in our last couple of minutes with this group, I just want to give time for each of us to maybe reflect or share, our take-home messages. And for me, that message is this. There are 573 federally recognized tribes in the United States. There are many, many more state-recognized tribes. And the vast majority of Native people in this country live in urban areas. So no matter where you are, no matter who you are, there are Native people and Native systems around you. And reach out, learn about us. There's an app you can all download called Native Lands, where you can learn about land acknowledgement, as we had David Peters do for us today. I encourage you all at all of your events to do this, and not just as a tokenistic gesture, but to actually have action connected to it. Learn about food sovereignty in our sovereign nations. Those 573 nations are domestic dependent nations of the United States. We have very unique political statuses. Learn about that, because there are models for public health that are innovative and that can change the way that we do business. So I plead with you, go to those sessions, look these things up, don't forget about us.
If I had anything to say to a room of amazing people, hundreds of friends, as she said, it would be, I think there's lessons that, I've mentioned it, there's lessons that can be learned from Indigenous peoples, from our Indigenous relatives, right? Like this deep Indigenous wisdom that has been passed down and honed for thousands of years. When I'm sitting in a ceremony, I'm sitting with elders, I'm listening to wisdom that has been passed down through generations, that has been passed down through people who have all lived and died for me to be here today. I think of myself as a link in a chain with all these people behind me and these people that are potentially coming in front of me, right? And when you think of yourself as just a link, it gives you that humility, it gives you that understanding and perspective of, it took so many people for me to be here. What am I going to do for the people that are coming? What can I do to make sure that they have a better world than I had? What contribution can I make? What knowledge can I learn and acquire in this time that I can pass on to them to fill up their cup? The cup that I have that's trying to be filled right now. To humble ourselves and to remember, that we just have this one life, this one chance to do something, to make something of ourselves, to fight for those yet to come, to give voice to those yet to come, to be our ancestors' dreams, right? To live out what they fought for us to have, and to, always remember that, it's an urgent time. There are urgent responses needed. To not feel paralyzed by grief, to not feel paralyzed by the grief of this overwhelming threat of climate change, of feeling like humans are not responding, we're not doing enough, our government systems are not listening, our corporatocracy is not responding in the way that it has to, radical response. But to not feel paralyzed by that and think about the things that you can do. Find the places in your heart that you can make a change, you can make a difference, you can help a community, you can empower a community, you can uplift those people and be good to one another. There's so much power in not only our physical health, our spiritual health, right? Like this theft and constant destruction of the earth leads to spiritual damage. We are damaging ourselves and we don't even think about it because we're so disconnected. But that's within all of us, we've just forgotten, we have to remember. Our people talked about a time that we would remember, right? Like this choice that we have to make. After we moved here to Minnesota from here, actually, from over on the East Coast, we knew that humanity would be faced with this choice and that some of humanity would remember and they'd wake up, the new people would remember and wake up, and we're seeing that. With our youth rising all over the world, there are new people waking up, so we just have to listen.
Chi miigwech, Tara. Chi miigwech, everyone.